Welcome everybody to Watching the Hawks. I am Tyrell Ventura.
And I am Tabitha Wallace. The Thanksgiving story you were taught in school most likely goes something like this. Pilgrims fleeing the English rule hopped aboard a ship called the Mayflower to the New World of the Americas, seeking religious freedom. They landed in Plymouth, Massachusetts, where they found lush land overflowing with abundant wildlife. And thanks to friendly Native Americans, one named Squanto, they learned to plant corn and survive the harsh winters. A feast was had with the Pilgrims and the Native Americans to celebrate the abundant harvest. That is what we now call Thanksgiving. Except that isn't exactly what happened. So let's burst your bubble and bring some insight into this example of historical blindness. The colonists of Plymouth did leave England due to religious persecution, but they first went to Holland, where the very liberal mindset allowed them to practice their faith in peace for years. But they were very poor. They're finding it hard to find work and setting off for the New World. The plan was to start a commune of sorts, where they could create a place where their whole lives would be lived in accordance with their faith. In the Mayflower Compact, an agreement signed by the leading males of the colonist states, they are starting the settlement for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian faith. But after landing in the New World in around December 21st, 1620, their godly pursuits didn't shield them from the harsh winters or their complete lack of understanding of local farming. That first winter, 45 out of 102 colonists died from exposure and malnutrition and other ailments. And it wasn't until March of 1621 that Squanto, the friendly Native American, showed up. But he wasn't what many think and what children in schools are taught. He was actually more of a world traveler and probably more educated than many of the Plymouth colonists. Squanto was a Wampanoag Native American who had been captured by European traders a decade earlier and sold to Catholic friars in Spain as a slave. Eventually freed, Squanto went to London, where he met and worked for John Slaney, a shipbuilder, who taught him English and culture and helped Squanto return to the New World. Sadly, upon returning to his village a decade after his abduction, he found that his entire tribe had either been killed or died of smallpox brought by European traders and colonists. He was a man without a tribe and primarily lived alone in the woods until the colonists arrived on his childhood land. And he helped, at least for a time, to keep the peace between the natives and the colonists by working out a treaty with the local tribal leader, Massasoit. So there was a feast in the fall of 1621 to celebrate the harvest. According to the diary of Governor Bradford, 90 Wampanoag just showed up. And once invited to join the colonists to celebrate the harvest, the Wampanoag realized there wouldn't be enough for everyone. So they sent hunters out and came back with a deer, the actual signature dish of the first Thanksgiving. But that incident is not where the first recording of Thanksgiving as a holiday shows up. 15 years later, in 1636, the death of a white settler blamed on the natives of the area prompted the colonists of the Plymouth colony to retaliate, killing hundreds of men, women, and children of the Pequot tribe. In his journals, the governor of Plymouth, William Bradford, wrote of the incident, "Those that escaped the fire were slain with the sword, some hewed to pieces, others run through with their rapiers, so that they were quickly dispatched and very few escaped. It was conceived they thus destroyed about 400 at this time." The next day, he declared that they should always celebrate that day to give thanks for subduing the Pequots. He wrote, "For the next 100 years, every Thanksgiving day ordained by a governor was in honor of the bloody victory, thanking God that the battle had been won." But that story doesn't help a cottage industry of fabricated historical events meant to cover up the true horrors of colonization in the Americas, nor does it help push Americans to spend some $2.8 billion on Thanksgiving dinners every year. It doesn't make it easier to explain to children how our ancestors were responsible for so much death, disease, and cultural destruction. But it sure sells pies. This Thanksgiving, let's try and put aside the manufactured fear and the fabricated myths. Let's gather together reaching out to neighbors, strangers, and those who aren't as lucky. Let us try and be what the myth suggests: the ideal, good, decent people who help fellow humans, no matter their race, religion, or country of origin. In order to end terror, violence, and fear, we have to proclaim and believe in our hearts it has no power over us.
That it most definitely does not, which is what we was saying at the beginning, which we eloquently put at the end. It's very interesting to look at this most American of holidays, Thanksgiving, and realize that it was based on blood. I don't think they really, yeah, you're right. They didn't really sell that one to school kids all that much about
No, it was the sweet
history of
story. You know, half the class put on a little Native American outfit and the other half dressed up as pilgrims, and we all had the friendly...
We had maize and turkey and all of these things,
Yeah.
yet surprisingly it was deer.
It was venison. Well, and they also had eel.
Ooh,
Fun fact.
That's a good one for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Little eel goes
And
down
water
well.
birds, which turkeys are not water birds. And this is all from the diaries of the Governor Bradford and others who were there. Yeah, venison was, especially in England at the time, and now is, you know, quite rich. It's this very rich thing. So the fact that they were like, wow, here's deer, because they're everywhere, it became a big thing. But there's just a lot of misconceptions.
Yeah, and we use myths like this to kind of, like you said, kind of paint history in the way that we want to remember it.